Hey everyone, and welcome back to another severe storm film or weather forecast. In this forecast, we have a very active weather pattern to talk about, so let's jump right in without further ado. Take you a look at the trends over the course of the next week or so. Take you into the daytime hours tomorrow for your Wednesday across the Great Lakes. There's going to be a high pressure system sitting here that will be bringing in some northerly winds, which will kickstart lake effect and enhance snow showers. Some of those could cause some low visibility, maybe a brief inch or two of snow. Not going to be anything too crazy for you guys. But meanwhile, out in the west, you guys are going to be cranking up the mountain snow. You guys definitely deserve it after all this warmth you guys had lately. And then as we head in towards Thursday, Great Lakes are still churning the lake effect snow bands. Some of these could be rather intense across the highlighted area by Thursday evening. Going into Friday, we're going to be monitoring the south because I know it doesn't look like much now, but there is a low pressure system here and a low pressure system here. And what happens when the low pressure systems meet? Well, you get a storm system, and that's something to monitor into Saturday. Maybe a return of severe weather for areas like the Dallas-Fort Worth region, pretty much all of eastern Texas, with a soaking rain in areas like Tennessee back into Arkansas, northern Louisiana. And then the interesting thing is that as we head in towards Sunday, the European model is very stubborn with the northern side of this. But I'm going to say right now that with this low pressure system down here, we are very likely going to have enough moisture to kick up into here and kickstart some wintry side of this storm system, all right? Whether that's snow or ice, I don't know yet, but we got to watch this area very closely, especially when you're talking about Pennsylvania and areas further north. Other than that, you're going to be talking about a soaking rain down south, maybe a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings back down into the Florida Panhandle, maybe southern Alabama, maybe southern Mississippi. And then as we headed towards Sunday, notice here how the low pressure system will continue moving off towards the east. I did forget to mention that if the low pressure system does move further to the north, that's a more impactful winter storm here, and that's more impactful severe weather for a larger area here, all right? So the track of this low will mean everything. And then as we headed towards Monday of next week, all indication says high pressure will build back in. That's going to be launching moisture up into the Great Lakes region. I wouldn't be shocked if we have a little bit of freezing rain in this area on Monday evening. And then as we take this into the daytime hours on Tuesday, high pressure stays down in the southeastern United States, continues pumping in moisture. This is going to make the entire eastern United States get above average in terms of temperatures. Meanwhile, your boundary layer here is going to likely still be chilly, all right? Don't worry, though, because the warm air is coming. But looking out towards the west, this looks like a winter storm at this point, all right? A mountain-wide range winter storm as we headed towards Tuesday from California back into all of the Intermountain West, back up towards southwestern Canada. That is something you guys definitely need to monitor if you live over there. And then we get into the middle of the week. This is something I'm monitoring too, all right? I know this is 8 days out, but this is going to be another headline that is going to make probably the news and all social media and stuff like that. High pressure off towards the east, still pumping in moisture. Notice how the Pacific moisture is also pumping in as well. That's helping to kickstart the wintry side of things. Note, though, that wherever this low pressure system tracks, that's going to determine your type of precipitation and who gets it, all right? For instance, as we headed towards Thursday, the European model wants a double barrel 989 low pressure system, which would bring, by the way, very high winds across all of this area. But like I said before, the track will matter, all right? If this is further south, your ice and snow is going to be in this area rather than up here. If it's further north or even here, you're going to be talking about the potential of strong to even severe thunderstorms and flooding rains getting as far north as the southern and northern Ohio Valley general area, or the southern Great Lakes and northern Ohio Valley general area, all right? So this is certainly something to monitor over the coming days. And taking a look at how the jet stream could look over the course of the next week or so, as we take this into time, as we take this into tomorrow evening, like I mentioned before, we're going to be dealing with those northwest to southeast winds, which will kick up snow showers off of our Great Lakes, especially Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Like I said, could be heavy and low visibility at times. And then as we head into Thursday, much of the same for you guys. As we head in towards Friday, though, that's when changes begin, all right? Notice how each system is more and more to the north and east, all right? So rather than it diving down here, it's diving down here, and you guys are going to be warming up nicely as we head into Friday, all right? Most of these areas, at least. And then as we head in towards late Friday into Saturday, this is when all attention will turn to the south, all right? A low-pressure system will eject across the southwestern United States. It's going to be a high-pressure system right here, and that's going to be yanking in moisture from the Gulf and the Pacific. That's going to kickstart the potential of some pretty intense thunderstorms. All right, now I don't know about severe weather just yet starting Friday evening due to how far west it is, but as it continues to pick up moisture and work its way east through Saturday, I would not be shocked at all to see a real big threat of severe storms, especially when it comes to damaging winds and the potential of tornadoes, all right? So watch out if you live in this area on Saturday. As we take this into Sunday, all right, the track of this low will determine everything. So just know anywhere south of this low pressure system has a threat of severe weather. So if it's down here, it's going to be confined down here. If it's further north, the severe weather threat's going to probably extend into the southern Appalachians, believe it or not. So monitoring that closely. But as we headed towards next week, we are not going to be dealing with any Arctic shots of air. Instead, it's going to be a Pacific jet, meaning that it's going to be a rambunctious jet stream too. And guess what? That sets up the stage for another storm system as we headed towards the middle and end of next week, all right? A lot of things to still discuss with this, depending on timing and strength and whatnot. But if this is the solution, I could see some decent thunderstorms in this area. I could see severe weather being a problem for sure in this area if this solution does pan out, along with the potential of some sort of ice and snowstorm on the northern flank. So the track of this low pressure system will be crucial. And then as we take it throughout the rest of February, no signs of the pattern calming down anytime soon. And taking a look at those temperatures over the course of the next week or so, as we take it into the daytime hours tomorrow, it's going to be cold across the Great Lakes, all right? Much expected for February, but it felt very nice across much of this area in that second circled area today. So it's going to feel cold, you guys, again tomorrow as a cold front there, as you can see, pushes on south. But as we take it into the daytime hours there on Thursday, this is when we'll start to notice signs of moisture and warmth down here in the south, all right? You notice those warmer temperatures coming from the Gulf. That's going to put areas like Dallas back into Armadillo, all those areas back into the 70s and low 80s, perhaps hitting 90 in a localized area. So definitely going to be warm down there. Then as we take it into Friday, the warm-up seriously begins, all right? I mean, we're talking about widespread 80 to 85 degree temperatures across this area, all while this cold front and dry line is starting to sweep in with this low pressure system to the west. And then as we take it into the daytime hours on Saturday, here comes the cold front, all right? You notice the big gradient from temperatures in the low 70s to the low 60s, all right? It's not the biggest cold front in the world, but it's also going to be noticeable, all right? And it's going to be a change. And when you have this moisture compiling up like that, you have a shot at severe weather, all right? In fact, I think this is rain-cooled air showing in eastern Texas on this run, all right? I think this is trying to show kind of a line of thunderstorms per se, all right? So this area, be on alert for severe weather as we headed towards Saturday. Otherwise, I don't want to ignore all the other parts of the country. It's going to begin to get very mild across much of the country, all right? I mean, we're talking about above freezing temperatures all the way through New York, potentially, which is definitely insane. It's only going to continue as we headed towards Sunday, all right? Okay, maybe a bit of a cool down over here with a little bit of uncertainty in how far north or south this low tracks. But like I said before, could see some sleet, could see some freezing rain possible if that sets up properly. Otherwise, it's just going to be very mild across a lot of these areas, all right? We're talking about at least 50-degree temperatures, which will be more than welcome across these areas. And then as we head into Monday, the temperatures are only going to get better from there, all right? I mean, we're talking about 50s as far north as Minnesota. We're talking about possibly 50s as far north as southern Michigan. And what that's going to do as we headed towards Tuesday is that's going to swing in another blob of cold air, all right? You're going to be feeling it. 20s across areas of the upper Midwest and northern plains. Meanwhile, down here, temperatures in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, perhaps 80s down here when you get into Texas. But then that's going to form a storm system, like I said, as we head into Wednesday, all right? This model showing the warm front right along this gradient here. But like I said before, this will be shifting and shifting over the coming days with a big cold front on the western side. This would be severe weather mayhem for this area if that were to happen. Not going to lie. But seriously, though, compared to how the jet stream looks, Thursday would be your day to watch, all right? Where that low pressure system tracks is going to be crucial, all right? Right now, it shows it tracking here, which would put the warm front here and the cold front here, all right? That would put all the severe thunderstorm threats in this warm sector, all right? They're that triple point area with your highest tornado threat probably confined closer to the low pressure system, all right? So just watch out if you live in any of those areas as we headed towards next week. And then as we head into the rest of February, all signs point towards not many cold blasts. We could have another one around the end of the month, but that's too early to say right now. And now let's take a look at where the greatest zones have the potential of severe weather over the course of the next 7 days, all right? Or the zones that have the greatest shot at severe weather, all right? As we headed towards Friday, there's some slight kind of signals down here, but I really think it picks up, especially as we headed towards Saturday for areas of eastern Texas. I was really highlighting this area. It looks like the ensembles also agree that there could be a decent severe threat that materializes there, so really pay attention if you live there. As we headed towards Sunday, uncertainty exists on how far north or south the low pressure system tracks. But if this were the case, this would be your area to watch out for severe weather. Again, this can shift north and south. And then as we take it into the daytime hours on Monday, as that storm system moves offshore, obviously no severe weather there. But then Tuesday and Wednesday come, there's some mixed signals, all right? Notice that there's some signals for severe weather anywhere in this general area, which I think is pretty far north. I would just cut it off here. But, I mean, I think it's a pretty good potential anywhere south of that line, all right? I mean, as we head in towards Thursday, too, I mean, you're talking about already starting to concentrate on this area for the greatest shot at severe storms. All right, again, like I said before, this storm system looks to be rather strong. So if the low pressure system is way up here, you're going to have severe storms and flooding rainfall as far north as where that low pressure system goes. And you could even have flooding rains and ice and snow and whatnot on the northern side. All right, now that takes me to my next section of this video. All right, the wintry side. All right, let's take a peek at the potential of freezing rain exceeding 1/10 of an inch. All right, as we head into the daytime hours tomorrow, notice not many probabilities. That's because there's not much ice. But then as we head into the daytime hours on Sunday, little bit popping up here, all right? Again, I was mentioning this area should watch out for the potential of some ice, all right? I don't think it's going to be a major event, but there is that potential there of at least something. As we head into Monday, the potential exists all along the northeast coast, down the I-95 corridor, down the Appalachian coast. Not everywhere in this area will see ice, but this is just a general area right now to keep an eye on. Then as we headed towards Tuesday, this is when a bigger system could materialize. This area I'm watching very closely. Like I said before, an ice storm could materialize due to how much moisture is going to be getting shoved up from the Gulf. Then as we head in towards Wednesday, this is when the ice storm threat could really materialize into areas like the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. It's extending south into Ohio, Pennsylvania, and all these areas because there's just so much uncertainty as to the exact track of the low pressure system. For all we know, these areas could be dealing with severe weather. even though this shows the potential of ice, all right? Or the ice storm threat could completely just collapse down and affect this area instead of areas north, all right? We just don't know right now, but it definitely is a signal to keep an eye on. And finally, taking a look here at the potential of accumulating snow, 1 inch or more, as we headed towards Sunday. Notice here how, like I said before, the same area I'm watching has that potential, all right? Most likely potential is in this green highlighted area, which is higher elevation areas. But, I mean, even when you're talking about lower elevations, I mean, on the northern side of that system, you could definitely be watching for that. So watch out if you live across that area for some accumulating snow. As we head towards Monday, increasing chances for accumulating snow significantly all along the northeast coast, even along the I-95 corridor. And then back here toward the Intermountain West, we're really lighting up the snowfall totals across those areas. Taking it into the daytime hours on Tuesday, the odds increase across the northern plains for the potential of accumulating snow. Then as we take it into Wednesday, here we go. Here comes the chances really starting to skyrocket across the upper Midwest and northern plains, all right? This could definitely cause problems. There could be potential 4+ inches of snow as well with this. And then as we headed towards Thursday, like I said, lots of uncertainty of where this tracks. The most likely area to see a snowstorm out of this will be this area. But can it drop south? It certainly could. So watch out. Basically across this entire area as we headed towards the middle part of next week, because there's just so much uncertainty regarding the potential track of that next low pressure system. And that was enough with the precipitation probabilities. Now let's take a look at the wind probabilities, all right? I will say that there is a concern for high winds with this next system, all right? So let's take it out to Sunday, all right? No concern with real high winds with this one. I would watch out down here with the potential of thunderstorms, but that's about it. As we head in towards Monday, that's all offshore. Take it in towards the 12Z because this doesn't go out that far. Going into Tuesday, this is when odds begin to increase for high winds across the central plains, northern plains, and Intermountain West. There could be blizzard conditions in these mountain ranges. And then as we headed towards Wednesday, this is when I start to get concerned for the high wind potential across the Great Lakes. Like I said before in the previous section, that there could definitely be high winds with this, in addition to the potential of precipitation, which is to be determined at this point, but whether it's thunderstorms, rain, freezing rain, or snow, you guys definitely have a shot at 40+ mile per hour wind gusts with this system. As we take it into the daytime hours on Thursday, odds are really widespread, all right? They're low, but they're widespread across this entire area for the potential of 40+ mile per hour wind gusts. And taking a look at the potential of 58+ mile per hour wind gusts, I will show you right now, that is starting to creep up, especially in the Intermountain West, where gusts could exceed 60 to 70 miles an hour at times late next week if this is the case, in addition to the Appalachian Mountains. That's also something to watch out for, all right? So not only the precipitation, this next system as we head in towards next week could very well have very high winds. We could see widespread wind advisories, widespread high wind warnings, in addition to the potential of severe thunderstorms, which could cause damaging winds in the localized zones those go through. All right, folks, I'm Severe Storm Filmer. That's all I had for you on tonight's forecast. I should have another forecast out by Thursday. Make sure you guys, make sure you have ways of receiving alerts. Prepare ahead of time down south. I'll have another update in 2 days, though, to remind you guys again. But the earlier to prepare, the better.